What if everything you believe about reaching your potential has been leading you away from the very fulfillment you seek? In the next few moments, I want to share something that might shift how you see your capabilities forever, not through force, but through understanding. There's a quiet truth about human potential that most people never discover because they're listening to the wrong voices. Stay with me because what I'm about to share might change not just how you approach your growth, but who you become in the process. The people who truly embody their potential understand something profound about human transformation. It's not what you think, and by the end of this journey together, you'll see why most people remain trapped in cycles of unfulfilled promise while others seem to effortlessly expand into their greatness. What if the very thing keeping you from your fullest expression isn't what you lack, but what you're chasing? Let me share a perspective that might feel uncomfortable at first, then liberating. Let me explain what I mean. Let me begin with something we've all experienced, that persistent sense that there's more within us waiting to emerge, yet somehow remaining just beyond our reach. Have you noticed how we can feel simultaneously capable of extraordinary things and completely stuck in ordinary patterns? There's something profound happening in these moments, something most of us miss because we're focused on external achievements rather than inner alignment. Here's what I've observed across countless conversations and years of exploring human potential. Most of us have been taught to believe that reaching our potential means pushing harder, doing more, and constantly striving towards some distant version of ourselves. We think that relentless effort and strategic action will unlock our capabilities. But what if this approach is like a gardener yanking on a seedling to make it grow faster? The very force we apply creates resistance, stress fractures in our foundation, and ultimately stunts the natural expansion that wants to occur. Let me paint a picture that might feel familiar. You wake up with inspiration, perhaps after reading something profound or having a meaningful conversation. You feel that familiar spark, the sense that today could be different, that you could finally break through whatever invisible barrier seems to hold you back. You make plans, set intentions, maybe even take bold action. But within days or weeks, you find yourself back in familiar patterns, wondering why your enthusiasm faded and why sustainable change feels so elusive. This experience isn't a sign of weakness or lack of commitment. You begin to question your character, your willpower, your worthiness of the dreams that call to you. You might think you need better strategies, more discipline, or perhaps you're just not meant for the kind of life that others seem to create with ease. This isn't anyone's fault. We live in a culture that has taught us to relate to our potential like a resource to be extracted rather than a garden to be tended. We've inherited approaches to growth that treat symptoms rather than causes, that focus on behavior modification rather than identity transformation. But here's what's really happening beneath the surface. While we're focused on changing what we do, trying to force different outcomes through sheer effort, the real invitation is to understand who we're becoming. Until we see this clearly, we remain like a tree trying to grow by pulling on its own branches rather than deepening its roots. Consider these questions not to judge yourself, but to simply notice. How often do you find yourself starting strong but struggling to maintain momentum in areas that matter to you? When did you first learn that your worth was tied to your productivity or achievements rather than your inherent value? What would it feel like if you trusted that your potential wants to emerge as naturally as a flower blooming in its season? This pattern affects the vast majority of us, not because we're broken, but because we're human beings living in a world that has forgotten how transformation actually works. But what if there's another way? What if your potential isn't something to be forced into existence, but something to be welcomed home? Here's something beautiful I've noticed. The people who seem to live most fully aren't necessarily the most driven or disciplined. They're the ones who have learned to align with their nature rather than fight against it. Before we explore this path together, let me share what changed everything for me. There was a moment in my journey when I realized something that changed everything. I had been treating my potential like a mountain to climb rather than a river to join. Let me share what led to this understanding. For years, I approached personal growth the way most of us do, through willpower, goal setting, and constant self-improvement. I read every book, attended seminars, created elaborate systems for tracking my progress. I was doing all the right things, yet I felt increasingly disconnected from any sense of authentic expansion. The harder I pushed, the more resistance I encountered, not from external circumstances, but from something deeper within myself. The breakthrough came during a period of quiet exhaustion. I had burned out from trying so hard to become someone I thought I should be. In that stillness, I began to notice something I had completely overlooked. There were aspects of my life where growth happened effortlessly. Areas where I naturally excelled, where time seemed to disappear, where challenges felt like invitations rather than obstacles. This observation led to a profound shift in understanding. I realized that potential isn't something we create through effort, it's something we uncover through alignment. Like a river that flows powerfully when it follows its natural course, our capabilities expand most fully when we work with our nature rather than against it. This experience taught me something profound about human potential. It's not a destination to reach, but a quality of being to embody. The moment we try to force our expansion, we create the very resistance that blocks it. Think of it like this. Imagine a seed buried in rich soil. The seed doesn't strain or struggle to become a tree. It doesn't create elaborate plans or force its growth through willpower. Instead, it surrenders to the natural intelligence within it, drawing nourishment from its environment, responding to light and seasons, expanding in perfect timing according to its inherent design. The magnificent tree that eventually emerges isn't the result of the seed's effort. It's the natural expression of the seed's essential nature when conditions are right. The same principle applies to human potential. Your capabilities aren't something you need to build from scratch. They're already encoded within you, waiting for the right conditions to emerge. When you align with this understanding, growth becomes as natural as breathing. What I discovered is that the people who embody their potential most fully aren't the ones pushing hardest against their limitations. They're the ones who have learned to create conditions that allow their natural gifts to flourish. While most of us are trying to force ourselves to be different, they're practicing the art of becoming more themselves. This is why the wisest teachers throughout history understood that transformation happens from the inside out. They knew that lasting change isn't about adopting new behaviors, but about returning to our essential nature. When you align with this understanding, something beautiful begins to unfold. You stop trying to become someone else and start remembering who you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning and expectation. What shifts when we understand this is profound. Instead of constantly reaching for some future version of ourselves, we begin to recognize and nurture the seeds of greatness that are already present. We move from scarcity to abundance, from forcing to allowing, from becoming to being. Now, you might be wondering how this wisdom translates into daily life. Let me show you. Here's the understanding that transforms everything. Your potential isn't a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived into with patience and reverence. Let me tell you about someone who embodies this principle. Sarah was a brilliant professional who had spent decades climbing corporate ladders, checking boxes, and meeting every external marker of success. Yet she felt hollow, as if she were living someone else's life. Everyone around her saw accomplishment, but she experienced a growing sense of disconnection from her authentic self. The shift began when Sarah stopped asking, "How can I be more successful?" and started asking, "Who am I when I'm not trying to be anyone?" This question led her on a journey inward, exploring not what she should become, but what wanted to emerge from within her. She began paying attention to moments when she felt most alive, most connected to something larger than herself. What she discovered surprised her. Her deepest fulfillment came not from achieving more, but from creating space for others to discover their own gifts.
She realized that her true potential lay not in climbing higher in existing structures, but in building bridges that helped others find their way. This insight led her to gradually transition into mentoring and coaching, work that felt less like effort and more like coming home to herself. The transformation wasn't dramatic or sudden. It unfolded gradually, like a flower opening to the sun. As Sarah aligned more fully with her authentic nature, opportunities began appearing that she never could have planned or forced. Her influence expanded, but from a place of service rather than striving. People were drawn to her presence because she had stopped trying to impress and started allowing her genuine gifts to serve. This story reveals something powerful. When we stop trying to maximize our potential and start honoring it, we create space for something far more beautiful to emerge than anything we could have engineered through effort alone.
You see, what most people don't realize is that potential is not a resource to be optimized, but a relationship to be deepened. They believe that strategic action and disciplined effort will unlock their capabilities, but this is like trying to force a butterfly to emerge from its cocoon. The very pressure we apply can damage the delicate process of transformation that wants to unfold naturally. Here's the profound truth. Your potential is already whole and complete within you. It doesn't need to be built, earned, or proven. It needs to be recognized, welcomed, and given space to express itself authentically. Consider this metaphor. Imagine a master musician approaching a beautiful instrument. The music isn't created through force or aggression, but through sensitive listening, gentle touch, and deep attunement to the instrument's natural resonance. The musician doesn't make the music happen, they create conditions that allow the music to emerge. Their skill lies not in controlling the sound, but in collaborating with the inherent musical potential of the instrument. Just as the musician must learn the unique qualities of their instrument, your journey toward fulfilling your potential begins with learning the unique qualities of your authentic self. This isn't about optimizing performance, but about discovering your natural frequency and creating conditions that allow it to resonate fully. This is why those who truly master the art of living approach their potential differently. They understand that forcing and striving often create the very resistance that blocks their expansion. While others are pushing against their limitations, they practice the subtle art of creating space for their gifts to unfold naturally. But here's what's beautiful about this understanding. When you stop trying to extract your potential and start partnering with it, three things naturally emerge. First, you experience an immediate sense of relief and alignment. The constant pressure to be different dissolves, replaced by a gentle curiosity about who you're becoming. You move from self-improvement to self-discovery, from fixing yourself to exploring yourself. Second, you begin to notice that growth happens more organically. Instead of forcing change through willpower, you start making choices that naturally align with your deepest values and truest self. Opportunities appear that feel both surprising and perfectly timed, as if the universe is conspiring to support your authentic expression. Third, your impact on others becomes more profound without becoming more effortful. When you stop trying to be impressive and start being authentic, people are naturally drawn to your presence. Your influence expands not because you're pushing harder, but because you're showing up more fully as yourself. Let me share an example of how this looks in practice. Consider someone who has always felt called to write but has been trapped in cycles of starting and stopping, creating elaborate schedules and then abandoning them when inspiration fades. The traditional approach would be to develop better discipline, create accountability systems, and push through resistance. But what if instead they began to approach writing as a conversation with something larger than themselves? What if they created gentle rituals that honored the creative process, wrote when they felt called rather than when they thought they should, and trusted that their authentic voice was worth expressing even if it didn't fit conventional models of success? This shift from forcing to allowing often leads to more consistent, authentic, and ultimately fulfilling creative expression. The writing becomes not a task to complete, but a way of being in relationship with their deepest truth. This isn't about becoming undisciplined or passive. This is about recognizing that true discipline comes not from self-control, but from self-love. Not from forcing yourself to do what you think you should, but from aligning with what wants to emerge through you. But there's something even deeper here that might surprise you. The people who embody their potential most fully have learned that the journey itself is the destination. They understand that potential isn't something you reach, but something you live, not a future state, but a present quality of being. Here's why this works on such a profound level. When you align with your authentic nature, rather than trying to transcend it, you tap into the same intelligence that grows trees and creates seasons. You begin operating from the same creative force that births stars and orchestrates symphonies. This isn't mystical thinking, it's practical wisdom about how transformation actually works. Now that you understand the deeper principle, let me guide you through how to live this understanding. Now, let me guide you through how to cultivate authentic potential in your daily life. This isn't a system to force results, but a way of being that allows your natural gifts to emerge gracefully. These aren't rules to follow, but invitations to explore. Pay attention to what resonates, because true transformation comes from inner alignment, not external pressure. The first invitation is to cultivate deep self-awareness without judgment or agenda. Here's how to begin. Create regular space for quiet reflection, not to analyze or improve yourself, but simply to notice who you are beneath the roles you play and the goals you pursue. This might be through meditation, journaling, walking in nature, or any practice that helps you connect with your inner landscape. This practice is like tending a garden. When you give consistent, gentle attention to the soil of your consciousness, you create conditions for insights to emerge naturally. You begin to recognize patterns, preferences, and tendencies that have been operating beneath the surface of your awareness. Most people skip this foundation because they're eager to take action and see results, but this is where all lasting transformation begins. Without self-awareness, we're constantly trying to plant seeds in soil we don't understand. Here's a simple way to cultivate this. At the end of each day, spend 5 minutes reflecting on moments when you felt most alive, most connected, most authentically yourself. Notice what conditions were present. What were you doing? Who were you with? What quality of energy were you embodying? Don't try to analyze or change anything, simply gather data about your authentic self. What to notice? Increase sensitivity to what genuinely nourishes you versus what merely distracts you. You'll begin recognizing the difference between activities that feed your soul and those that feed your ego. You'll develop an inner compass that can guide you towards choices that support your authentic growth. Remember, this isn't about becoming perfect or even becoming different. It's about becoming aware of who you already are beneath the layers of conditioning and expectation. Example, Maria began this practice feeling disconnected from her purpose. Through gentle self-observation, she noticed that she came alive in conversations where she helped others see new possibilities. This awareness didn't immediately change her career, but it began informing small choices: which meetings to prioritize, how to show up in conversations, what projects to volunteer for. Over time, these small alignments created a path toward work that felt deeply fulfilling. Once you've cultivated awareness, the next invitation is to align your choices with your authentic nature rather than external expectations. This isn't about making dramatic life changes or abandoning all responsibilities, but about bringing more consciousness to the daily decisions that shape your experience. Every choice is an opportunity to move closer to or further from your authentic self. Here's the contemplative practice. Before making decisions, both large and small, pause and ask yourself, does this choice honor who I am becoming? Notice the quality of energy that arises with different options. Your body and intuition often know what serves your highest good before your mind can analyze all the variables. You'll know you're aligned when decisions feel spacious rather than constrictive, when challenges become opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to overcome, when your energy increases rather than depletes through your activities.
Gentle reminder, alignment doesn't mean everything becomes easy, but it does mean that difficulties feel meaningful rather than arbitrary. You'll find yourself more willing to face challenges that serve your authentic growth while becoming less tolerant of situations that ask you to betray your true nature. Wisdom in practice. David realized he had been saying yes to opportunities that looked good on paper but felt heavy in his body. As he practiced this alignment, he began declining invitations that didn't resonate, even when they seemed advantageous. This created space for opportunities that he never could have planned, but that felt perfectly aligned with his gifts and values. This foundation separates those who create lasting transformation from those who experience temporary change. Most people approach potential like a sprint, pushing hard for short periods, then burning out. But true mastery is more like tending a garden, consistent, patient, seasonal, responding to natural rhythms rather than forcing artificial timelines. Here's how to practice this. Develop a sustainable relationship with growth that honors both action and rest, effort and ease, pushing forward and pulling back. Notice the natural rhythms of your energy and creativity. Work with these cycles rather than against them. The key is understanding that sustainable growth happens in spirals, not straight lines. You'll revisit similar themes and challenges at deeper levels. Without this understanding, you might think you're going backward when you're actually integrating previous learning at a more profound level. Deep practice. Create what I call growth rituals, regular practices that support your expansion without requiring heroic effort. This might be reading for 20 minutes each morning, taking weekly walks without destination, having monthly conversations with mentors, or setting aside time for creative expression. The specific practice matters less than the consistency and reverence you bring to it. Finally, this is about allowing your potential to express itself naturally through your life. This isn't about performance or proving your worth to others, but about authentic expression of your gifts in service of something larger than yourself. When you truly embody your potential, it naturally manifests as contribution, creativity, and connection. Here's the practice. Look for opportunities to share your gifts without attachment to outcome or recognition. This might mean offering insights in conversations, creating something beautiful, mentoring someone who could benefit from your experience, or simply bringing more presence to your daily interactions.
You'll notice a sense of flow and effortlessness when this becomes natural. Your contribution feels less like work and more like play, less like obligation and more like gift-giving. You stop asking, "What can I get?" and start asking, "What can I give?" Wisdom reminder. Authentic expression doesn't require a platform or permission. Some of the most profound contributions happen in quiet moments of genuine presence with the people already in your life. These foundations work together like roots, trunk, branches, and leaves of a tree. When you cultivate awareness, make aligned choices, practice patient cultivation, and allow natural expression, your potential emerges as organically as fruit appearing on a healthy tree in its proper season. Timeline. This isn't about achieving results in 90 days or transforming your life by next month, but about creating conditions that support lifelong growth and authentic expression. Trust that meaningful change often happens slowly, then suddenly, like the way spring arrives, through countless small shifts that eventually reach a tipping point. The beauty of this approach is that it honors both your human need for growth and your spiritual need for acceptance. You can expand into your fullest expression while remaining rooted in the understanding that you are already whole and complete exactly as you are. Something shifts when we understand that potential isn't about becoming someone else, but about becoming more fully ourselves. This removes the pressure and restores the joy to the journey of growth. As we near the end of our time together, I want to address some thoughts that might be arising. You might be wondering if this gentle approach is enough in a world that seems to reward aggressive ambition and relentless hustle. I understand this concern, having felt the pull between authentic growth and external pressure myself. In a culture that celebrates overnight success and dramatic transformation, this patient path might feel insufficient or naive. But consider this. The most enduring contributions to our world come from people who learn to work with natural principles rather than against them.
A redwood tree doesn't become mighty through force, but through patient cooperation with sun, soil, and seasons. Its strength comes not from rushing, but from deepening, not from competing, but from contributing its unique gifts to the forest ecosystem. The most profound transformations in nature happen gradually, through small, consistent changes that compound over time. Your journey toward fulfilling your potential deserves the same respect and patience you would give to any precious growing thing. You might also be thinking that you've tried similar approaches before without seeing the results you hoped for. Your past experiences matter, and I honor the sincerity of your previous efforts. What makes this different isn't the techniques themselves, but the quality of relationship you bring to your growth, moving from self-improvement to self-discovery, from fixing yourself to exploring yourself. I once worked with someone who had tried every personal development approach available, always with the same underlying assumption that he needed to become fundamentally different to be worthy of success. When he shifted to exploring who he already was beneath his strategies and systems, everything changed. Not because he learned new techniques, but because he stopped fighting himself and started partnering with his authentic nature. Another concern that often arises is whether you have the patience or consistency this approach requires. This doubt itself reveals something beautiful. You're already more self-aware than most people, who never question their capacity for growth. The fact that you're concerned about your ability to sustain change shows that you understand the importance of lasting transformation over quick fixes.
Remember, you don't need extraordinary discipline or unwavering motivation. You need ordinary commitment to treating yourself with the same patience and encouragement you would offer a dear friend on their journey. The question isn't whether you can maintain perfect consistency, but whether you're willing to keep returning to practices that serve your authentic growth, even when you get distracted or discouraged. Finally, you might be wondering how you'll know this path is right for you, how you can trust that this gentle approach will lead to the fulfillment you seek. This question contains its own answer. You'll know by the quality of aliveness you feel when you align with your authentic nature rather than external expectations. You don't need to have faith in my words or trust in any particular system. You only need to trust your own experience of what brings you alive, what feels spacious rather than constrictive, what connects you to something larger than your individual concerns. You'll know this path is right when small daily choices begin feeling more meaningful, when challenges become opportunities for growth rather than evidence of your inadequacy, when you find yourself naturally drawn to contribute your gifts rather than constantly trying to acquire more for yourself. Remember, the deepest knowing doesn't come through mental analysis, but through embodied experience. Trust your capacity to recognize what serves your highest good, even when it doesn't match conventional definitions of success or productivity. As we close our time together, I want to leave you with an invitation, not an instruction. Your journey toward embodying your authentic potential doesn't require dramatic action or immediate transformation. It asks for something much more profound: the courage to trust your own natural unfolding and the patience to honor your unique timing. Here's what I invite you to consider. Today, take a few moments to notice one thing that brings you alive, one small way your authentic self wants to express itself. This might be as simple as having a genuine conversation, spending time in nature, or creating something with your hands. Don't make it complicated or significant. Just notice what calls to you when you're not trying to be productive or impressive. This week, practice making one choice each day from alignment rather than obligation. Ask yourself what feels spacious and life-giving rather than what you think you should do. Notice how different it feels to move from inner knowing rather than external pressure. Moving forward, cultivate a relationship with your potential based on partnership rather than domination. Instead of trying to force your capabilities into existence, create conditions that allow them to emerge naturally. Trust that your authentic gifts want to express themselves as much as you want to express them. There's no rush, there's no deadline. Your potential will emerge in its own time when you create the right conditions within yourself. Conditions of awareness, alignment, patience, and authentic expression. Trust that you don't need to figure everything out before you begin.
The path reveals itself as you walk it, and your authentic nature knows the way even when your mind feels uncertain. Remember, you don't need to become someone different to fulfill your potential. You need to remember who you already are beneath the layers of conditioning that have obscured your natural brilliance. You need to trust that your authentic self, when given space and encouragement, naturally moves toward growth, contribution, and connection. The path to your potential is already there, woven into the fabric of your daily life, waiting to be recognized and walked with reverence. Your only job is to take the next gentle step with awareness and trust. True potential isn't about becoming extraordinary in the eyes of others, but about becoming authentic in your own experience. It's not about maximizing your capabilities, but about honoring them. It's not about proving your worth, but about expressing your gifts. As you move forward, carry this understanding with you. Your potential isn't a problem to be solved, but a gift to be shared. The world needs what you have to offer when you're living from your authentic nature rather than trying to be someone you think you should be. Thank you for allowing me to share this journey with you. May you find the courage to trust your own unfolding, and may your path be filled with the quiet joy that comes from living in alignment with your deepest truth. The world needs what you have to offer when you're no longer trying to be anyone other than yourself. Trust the process, trust your timing, and trust that your authentic nature already contains everything necessary for a life of meaning and contribution. Here's to your gentle transformation and the quiet wisdom that guides you home to yourself.